What do smart entrepreneurs do when they want to improve their business systems? What do smart entrepreneurs do when they want to improve their business systems? This is an interesting question. This is a question that you should consider if you are in business. Why? Because I know that systems are critical to getting you out of the way of your own business, getting you out of the day-to-day, getting you out of the doing and into the higher level work. Some of which, in fact, quite a lot of which will be system improvement. Just going back over Work the System by Sam Carpenter, a super awesome book. And he speaks of his work here, that he is going through and doing system design, system improvement, and this has a massive effect on his business. Now, I've been facing this with my teams. Why? Well, I made a change to a system and I was like, you know what? We need to begin 2 weeks earlier because we're going to need some lead time in order to get graphic design done and get some printing done. And I just stuck it on top of the system that does the entire build out. This is for a concert. It's a concert that goes on every 2 weeks. And I was like, you know what? If we leave it till 2 weeks before, we're not going to have time to do this. And then there was a bit of a kickback. There was a bit of an uproar from my team. They're like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? The system is meant to start here. You're starting it early. We're going to have all these extra systems everywhere. And so we had a discussion. It was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And it was great that it was being brought to my attention. You know, this was not a bad thing. This was a good thing. This was an opportunity to go, okay, well, hey, what are we going for here? What are we trying to achieve? And I was debating it with myself last night, whether it should be another system, whether the design and the printing of the posters should be its own system. But as I started to look at that, I was like, man, okay, now we've got a couple of systems for this. Now, this is just a concert, okay? But we've got poster design, poster printing as one system. We've got the advertising of it. We've got the sales of it, and we've got the fulfillment of it, and potentially the editing and the splitting up of the actual recordings as well. Now, that could be 3 or 4 different systems over 4 weeks, the total, maybe even longer, 5 weeks. And so the logistics of this became quite interesting. I was like, you know what? I think this is heading to a place where we could bring in a mission control board. What's a mission control board? Well, it is a high-level board that manages multiple smaller systems. Now, this can be done in repeating systems. This could be done in a fulfillment situation where you've got a 8-week client or a 6-week client, and you're going to have one high-level board and then 6 weeks of fulfillment boards. This is very useful for webinar delivery as well. If you've got a delivery of a course over 6 or 8 weeks, that each of those weeks has emails that go out, it has homework that should be managed, it has Zoom links, registration pages, all of that stuff goes on 1 week, but you still want a high-level board. I call it mission control. And this allows you to have one cool feature, which is the triggering of the systems can be managed by one calendar entry. Instead of having to have 3 or 4 or 5 calendar entries for this concert, where it's like, okay, at 4 weeks before, we've got the first system, and then at 2 weeks out, we've got 3 more, and then another system the day after. It's just one system, the mission control. And mission control tells you when to deploy the systems that are underneath it. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is manageable. This is nice. This is smooth. Because calendars can get tricky. You know, particularly, I like using calendars to trigger the systems. It gives me space to actually say, hey, that's the designated time for managing that system. But as you start to deal with more complex systems, or you want to design them so that they're more efficient, then these types of issues come up for you. How are you going to manage multiple systems that are part of a bigger project? This all assumes, of course, that you can do basic systems. There's no point, 0 point in going to mission control or Holy Grail. Holy Grail is the system that creates a system if you don't know how to do systems in the first place. And this was the great conundrum that I faced. Like, I'm like, hang on, I need a system to create systems, but I don't know how to do systems at all. This was a twisted experience, very difficult, very difficult. I'm like, oh my goodness. But when it came out, I'm like, oh wow, that's really quite elegant. What is the relationship between a system and its processes and its results? That's what came out. And it's very interesting to me to notice how few books there are on systems in business, despite E-Myth coming out and saying, hey, the solution, the key to you succeeding in business without tying yourself and becoming a slave to your business, so you're working 60, 80, 100-hour weeks, always struggling, having no control over your team, telling them what to do, micromanaging, error after error, all of these problems coming from an inability to run systems and processes. And you would think, therefore, that there would be a whole bunch of material on this. But what I've come to understand is that either people are not interested in it, or it's so hard, they're like, oh man, this is just too hard. But it's not too hard. It's not too hard. It's quite simple. It's quite elegant when you understand these relationships. What is a system? What are the rules of a system? What is that system trying to do? When does it get used? When does it stop? All the rules of that system. And then the actual steps, the processes, do this and this and this and this. This comes up in Sam Carpenter's books as well. This very linear 1, 2, 3, 4 nature of reality. That whatever results you are getting right now, these are not by chance, but these are because of systems that are poorly executed or executed in different times. Instead of having a time requirement, some systems will have a time requirement, like a process has to be done at a certain time. Some of them will have to continue through. You won't be able to stop. You're like, hey, this has to start, and then this and this and this and this. Think of it like surgery, you know, like if you're heading in for a surgery, you do not want your surgeon to then take a 3-hour break and go consult. No, you want him to finish the operation, tie you up, get you out of anesthesia. This is just like systems in business. Not all of them are like this, but some of them are. And I tell you, one of the key things that I notice as I've been thinking and reflecting, the ability for people to finish their systems is the number one determinant of their results. Like if you are actually able to finish a system, that all of the processes are done and you get the result, then this is a very good prognostic factor for your life. And the easier that you make that, the better results you'll have. And what makes it easy? I tell you what makes it easy, documentation. You got to write it down. I would much rather have something documented than having it in my head. Otherwise, I'm left communicating with people what they can hear, what they interpret, what they forget, what they remember. People are not great systems. We are just not. We're very good, though, at executing written instructions. That's all you have to do. You just got to work out a way to write it down so that it works, so that your team can use them and your team do use them, and you start getting the results without having to tell everybody what to do. If you want some help with this, head over to systemio.dev. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you got some value out of it. I had a lot of fun tonight making this for you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue this journey into the power of systems to create results. If you want some help, head over to systemio.dev. See you soon.